Hey everyone, welcome to another match of Temur Warp Midrange. Today we are playing a spicy version of Bant Aggro. Our opening hand is decent. We have some acceleration, no real threats, but we have Remand, which can buy us a turn. We have ice-fang which can keep early creatures at bay. So I think overall a safe bet. Definitely want to start with Arbor Elf here, just so we can use it turn 2 and potentially get 2 Utopia Sprawls down. So Stoneforge Mystic is not necessarily something I want to see, but hey, it is what it is. Our opponent's going to get Host of the Helm, or Helm of the Host, I should say. And that's an interesting card to see in Modern, but alright, let's see what spiciness they have with it. Looks like a card I don't want to deal with, honestly. So we draw a Tarmogoyf, which is great. You get a Stomping Ground to secure a red source. We don't have too many red spells in this deck, but it's enough. So we call blue. Now what might have made more sense is that we call green first and then tap the mana, attach Utopia Sprawl to the forest, and then call blue for that second Utopia Sprawl. And we were able to also cast Tarmogoyf, but whatever, it is what it is. So Gideon comes down. That's something that we want to counter, but I believe I messed up here and I didn't remand, unfortunately. So that's a thing. I think what I was thinking here was that I would just let Gideon resolve and we'll deal with it another way, or I misclicked and I just let it resolve, unfortunately. So that's a thing that happened. So Stoneforge is going to come in for the attack. Not going to do anything there. So it looks like I wanted to save it for ice-fang, which I suppose is fair. So we draw another. So now we're kind of flooding on lands, which is going to be okay for the long game, but in the short game, listen, Gideon's on the battlefield. There's Stoneforge Mystic. We need to start putting some pressure. Not necessarily an ideal situation, but we can produce 8 mana at the moment, which is fantastic for our game plan. So Gideon is doing his thing, and Jace comes down. So this is where we remand, right? So this is something we do not want to resolve. We remand that back. We draw Mishra's Bauble. Not necessarily the card I wanted to see, but we do draw Time Warp, so that's a thing. Almost certainly would be casting it this turn, and this way we could actually try and kill Gideon. So we see that Teferi, Hero Dominaria, is coming down next. They don't have the mana for it, but I'm just going to assume they're going to cast it eventually. Ideally, we screw up their plans a bit. So we're going to Time Warp and get an extra turn. But before we do, we're obviously going to attack in. And we're going to target Gideon, of course. So we're going to target Gideon with everybody. Not sure why I attack with Arbor Elf here. It would have been smarter to not attack with Arbor Elf. I think my guess here was that my opponent would try and block a bigger creature and not the Arbor Elf. So it's kind of a hedge. It seems like sometimes I feel like playing a risky game. Not ideal. So my opponent actually decides to not block anything. So Gideon's going to die, and we're also going to get a much bigger Tarmogoyf here. So great, that's turn 1. Now we're going to get our free turn. Not what I wanted. So now we kind of really flooded on lands. But it is what it is. We're drawing a Tarmogoyf next, which is a good thing. And now we're going to attack in again. This time we saved the Arbor Elf, because our opponent will almost certainly block it. We draw the Tarmogoyf. And we hope that our opponent doesn't go to 4 lands. To 5 lands. So let's see what happens. They do. And of course they pay 2 because they want Teferi to come down. So right now, I would say we're still okay. We're still okay in terms of dealing with our opponent here. So, I mean, we have a 5/6 Tarmogoyf, a flyer. I mean, these are all relevant things, right? We're obviously going to be attacking in. We're obviously going to be targeting Teferi. So our opponent at some point is going to have to do something. Now, they do have mana to tap Stormforged Mystic and put an enchantment onto the battlefield. We'll see how that goes. So we draw another land, which is brutal, honestly. It really is brutal. And I mean, the upside is that we have 2 5/6 Tarmogoyfs, but it's really not ideal. So here I'm thinking, what do I want to do? At the end of the day, we have to attack, right? Yeah. So we attack in. We attack in with our Arbor Elf, and this time the Arbor Elf was blocked, unfortunately. It was blocked by Stormforged Mystics. Now we lost it, but honestly, we have so much mana anyway that I'm not too concerned. I think realistically, I would have just kept the Arbor Elf, but alright. So now we get Lyra Dawnbringer onto the battlefield, which is, yeah, this is a problem. We do get to resolve Jace, but Lyra is an issue. So we use the 0 ability of Jace, and we get back our Tarmogoyf and a Lightning Bolt. So I think bolting Teferi here probably makes sense, but it's actually Stormforged Mystic that's the problem. I mean, our opponent already got the 5 mana. They could cast whatever equipment they got or whatever artifact they got, but we're going to see what happens here. They have a flyer, so our Tarmogoyf's going to do nothing. Our Jace will probably die. Alright, Timestream Navigator comes down, and now Helm of the Host comes down as well. So now we're in trouble. Now we're in trouble, and I think we don't really get out of this one. Depends what we draw. Ideally not a land. It's a remand. A bit late to the party here. So we're going to use the 0 ability again. We get 2 bolts, which are great, actually. We're going to take down Teferi and their new creature to the battlefield. And we still have to deal with Lyra here, which is a problem. A 5/5 flyer in the air with all those abilities, it's brutal. We're going to attack in with Tarmogoyf anyway and see what happens. Get them down to 5. So this is where Helm of the Host is basically going to end the game for us. Well, it's going to end the game for our opponent, and yeah, we're just going to lose. So we'll block. And we will die because of first strike. Let's see if we get a saving grace. Oh, well, yeah, it's true. That was remand. So we're still going to use the 0 ability because, again, we're digging. Not enough. Just not enough. The bolt is not enough. Next turn, they're going to get a 3rd Lyra. And, yeah, it's going to be game. It's going to be game pretty quick. So we attack in. Because we might as well attack in. Our Jace will definitely die next turn. And we have no way to fetch away the cards that we're putting on the top of our library, so we're just kind of stuck with it, and now we concede. Okay, so yeah, the game was over there. Our opponent is playing a greedy mana base, so I believe Blood Moon will come in handy here. Wilt will obviously come in handy as well to deal with Helm of the Host. Enchanting Melody may or may not be prudent. I mean, I think if we've gone to the point where our opponent has cast Lyra, for example, it's already become a little too late to try and take control. But it all depends on the space that I can make here. So I still need to remove 3 more cards. I think Remand going away probably makes the most sense. So we have an interesting start here. We have Time Warp and Tamiyo and 2 Utopia Sprawls and Arbor Elf. So we have a lot of acceleration here. So this is actually pretty good. This is actually pretty good. So we'll start off with Utopia Sprawl, of course. We'll load up that forest. And next turn we could already get Tamiyo down. There's a kind of weird sequencing here. I'm still getting used to sequencing with Arbor Elf and forests, but well, whatever. It is what it is. So our opponent does nothing turn 2, which is a little scary. So I get Steam Vents just to get my red source. We draw another land, which is okay. So this turn we can actually do Tamiyo, which would make sense. Start upping its loyalty counters, assuming it resolves. Our opponent is threatening permission. Let's see. Let's see if Tamiyo resolves here. Alright, she does not. That's alright. So we'll attack in for 1. We got nothing else to play. In a way, I should have kind of sensed that a counterspell was just waiting for us. I should have maybe waited, baited out something else. It might have worked by baiting, let's say, Time Warp out. But whatever. Arbor Elf gets kicked back. So this turn, we have to decide what we want to do. So we could play Time Warp, but it seems a bit of a waste. So it just makes sense to kind of try and recover here. So our opponent is playing a lot of angels. I called it Bant Aggro, but I probably should have called it Bant Angel Aggro, because it seems that's the main theme. So I'm thinking here I can cast ice-fang, but I can't because of Teferi's ability. So yeah, I kind of brain farted. I'm thinking, no, I have the mana. No, it's Teferi. It's Teferi, Kev. Alright, so I draw Tarmogoyf. Now, we can produce 8 mana here. So we can play Time Warp and we can play Tarmogoyf. Or ice-fang Coatl, but Tarmogoyf probably makes more sense. Instead, though, I decide to steal their angel, which is hilarious. But I do it anyway. And I play Tarmogoyf. So I think that's probably the better play here. It's kind of funny what just happened. Because I was even contemplating bringing it in, but I think it was the right play at the end of the day. So Path to Exile comes down. Can't do anything about that. They path their own angel. Gideon resolves as well. A little brutal with 2 planeswalkers on the battlefield. We can kill Teferi with the lightning bolt though, which is great. And we can kill Gideon. And we can play Time Warp. So not bad of a turn. Assuming I do that play. Yeah, looks like I will. In retrospect, I should be playing Time Warp main phase 2. Not now. Just in case, you know, our opponent decides to do something. So it looks I'm going to bolt Gideon here. Attack with nothing. Which is a bit weird. I think that was a bit of a misplay. But that's the power of extra turns. We can do a bunch of things and our opponent loses a lot of value. Alright, so they come down with another angel. We draw Euro, which is awesome. Definitely going to play Euro. And here I'm doing the math. Oh, can I play Euro and escape him in the same turn? It all depends on what I put on the 2 Utopia Sprawls there. If I put blue on just one of them, then we can continue playing. We can get a Euro and escape him in the same turn, which is awesome. Our opponent thinks that we're playing only 2 Time Warps, but no, we're playing 4. We're all in. We're all in, baby. We're playing 4 Time Warps no matter what. So, of course, it's important that when you're escaping Euro, you keep Time Warp in your graveyard, because it's an important part of your plan. And now we have a big Euro. So attacking in, not prudent. Jace comes down and will resolve, unfortunately. We'll see what they choose to do here. They could always bounce Euro back. Yep. I suppose I would do the same. Now we draw Ren in 6, which is a great draw. But we will prioritize Euro. We'll take Jace out so we don't have to deal with it. We get a land, which is great, actually. Unfortunately, we can't escape Euro this turn. Just not enough cards in the graveyard. But I can play Ren in 6, which I will obviously play. And we'll +1 him. We got nothing to target, but we'll +1 him anyway. And again, we're at a stalemate on the battlefield, so we just have to wait. We have to wait until Tarmogoyf gets 1 size bigger. Op comes down. I'm happy with that. Let them dig. They have a bunch of mana. Time Stream is going to be coming down. Have no response to that. But I can kill a Ren in 6, so it doesn't really matter. Oh, yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's going to survive because of ice-fang, so we get 1 turn out of it. Tarmogoyf. So now that Tarmogoyf is decent, I do get to escape Euro this turn as well. Oh, well, no, actually not yet, because I only have 6 cards in the graveyard. I'm gonna have to weigh losing Time Warp in the graveyard against actually having Euro on the battlefield. But it looks like I decide to just get rid of Time Warp here. Remember that Time Warp can be brought back into your hand with Tamio, which is very relevant. So let's see what our opponent does here. Unfortunately, yeah, okay. I don't think that's going to work. Not yet, anyway. So Euro comes down. What do we draw? We draw Time Warp. Well, that's great. That's actually fantastic, because this is what we're about to do. We are going to cast Time Warp. And then next turn, we are going to attack with our Euro and our Tarmogoyf, which is great. And if my math is correct, we can actually cast Tarmogoyf and play Time Warp and cast Time Warp on one turn. So next turn, we come down for a ton of damage. So it looks like we don't get our Time Warp. But we do get our Tarmogoyf, which is decent. Oh, we did. Alright, so I misread that. So it did nothing. It's not an activated ability. And we draw another Time Warp, which is fantastic, because this is going to be brutal. And you all know why. And we draw a third Time Warp, thanks to Euro. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we win game 2. There you go. Even if they let that go through, we would have played Time Warp, attacked them again, played Time Warp, attacked them again. At that point, there's no way. So if you watch the deck tech, I explained to you that you do not need infinite Time Warps. You do not need infinite extra turns to win this game. All you need is maybe 2, maybe 3 at the most. If you can't win with 3 extra turns, the game wasn't going very well for you anyway. But the point is, play big creatures, get extra turns, kill your opponent. There's only so much they can do when they're all tapped out for 2-3 turns in a row and they can't do anything, and you're just swinging with huge creatures. So again, great starts. Game 2 was a great start. It was a bit wonky halfway through, but then we stabilized and we won. So this hand was risky, but I kept it because we had enough lands. We draw Time Warp, not something that's going to be coming down anytime soon. We're going to be bolting that Time Stream Navigator because we just don't want to have to deal with it. And yeah, we're going to get Tarmogoyf onto the battlefield. Alright, our opponent does nothing, which is scary because, again, they probably have permission. And we have to be wary of that. We draw a second Time Warp, which is kind of funny. Again, it's not coming down anytime soon. Our opponent is complaining that they can't see cards. Don't necessarily believe it, but okay. So we attack in for 3. Not going to do much else here. Nimble. Their little nimble creature comes down. Bird Wizard. Field of Ruin. Alright, Helm of the Host. Well, it's going to resolve. And that's unfortunate. So I'm going to... Yeah, that makes sense. I draw Jace, which is not necessarily the card I wanted to see. Cool. Alright, so we get our 4th land. And now the question is, do we start Time Warping or not? Now, in theory, Jace makes more sense here. We don't have to rush to the Time Warps just yet. It is fun to attack and have extra turns, but you don't want to waste an extra turn either. So what I would do here, most likely, is play Jace. But it looks like I decided to play Time Warp instead. I guess I was a bit trigger happy here. Alright, so our opponent decided to quit because they didn't want to deal with more Time Warps. So unfortunately I didn't get to show you a game 3 here, but it's okay, there's going to be other matches that I'll be posting up. This was my first game with Temur Warp Midrange that I decided to actually record. And as you can see, things were a bit wonky, I was still getting used to it. Nevertheless, I think you're starting to see how this deck kind of comes together, right? So you saw in game 2 how many time warps I drew in a short period of time. It's just math. There are a lot of cards in the deck that are making you draw. Tamiyo is making you mill yourself, which is not a bad thing. Jace is allowing you to draw, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to draw time warp, and you only really need 1 or 2 with the right planeswalker on the battlefield to do what you need to do and win the game. And I've kind of displayed that here. I'll be displaying it more in other games. Trust me, there's a lot more that you're going to be seeing. But yeah, I want to show you this raw game first as just kind of an intro to show you that, hey, first of all, I have trouble with decks at the beginning as well. Even when I decide to finally record, there's still sequencing that I have to get used to, and you can still make mistakes. But at the end of the day here, we won game 3. I'm pretty confident we would have done just fine, thanks to Jace, thanks to Time Warp, at 2 Time Warps in hand. We would have been able to gain a lot of tempo by gaining those 2 extra turns, especially with Jace. So we were doing pretty good. Our opponent gave up. I understand. Stay tuned for more. If you enjoyed this match, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. If you enjoy my content in general, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. Helps me out a lot. Follow me on Twitter as well. I keep it relatively up to date. And yeah, thanks and have a good one.